Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Three Days to Aquariums podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in to this lovely experience that we've got running. If you haven't already, we would greatly appreciate a like and subscribe and review and all this other good stuff because yeah, it would just be cool and Ryan would really appreciate it. Might grow some hair back on that bald head of his, so you never know. Only one way to find
Possible,
out, if you will.
possible.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, so it's been a little while since we've recorded. It's for you guys. You won't notice because it still goes up every week. But we haven't recorded for a while, so I will ask you guys: has anything happened that's notable or exciting in your fish rooms recently that deserves a little segment? Someone talk
Nah, nothing,
now.
nothing's happening in my fishing.
It's a fun game that I
Cool.
think we play every time. Nothing's happening. That's not true.
Nah. I my sump light is on my tank over there, and it's annoying me because it's supposed to turn off. So I just noticed it in the corner of my eye. But anyway, it's shining out the back of the tank.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
your head.
it's not really shining. It's kind of muted this morning because it's not very bright because it's very early.
Oh, nice.
So the other day I had a shitty night's sleep because it was really cold, and then I woke up and I was like, I
Oh,
just
poor
woke up like
baby.
the alarm went off, and then I just woke up with like a shock. I was like, "Fuck! Did I close the fish room door last night?" I was like, "Did I?" I was like, "It was bloody cold." Logged into my weather app. It was 4 degrees. I was like, so I pulled up my app, which monitors the temperatures in the fish room, and the fish room was frozen. Like it was one one end was 15 degrees, the middle was about 18 degrees or something. So I was like, "Oh shit!" I just ran out there and obviously checked on the fish, and some of the fish actually still came swimming up to the front of the tank to say hello, but some of them were just lying on the bottom of the tank, just like, uh, and so I was like tapping the glass furiously to see if these fish would move, and they didn't. So I like put my hand in there, and they like kind of wiggled and moved a little bit, twitched, and I was like, okay, they're
Yeah.
still alive. And then I was like, oh shit! So I couldn't see any dead fish. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I got away with this. So I closed up the room, turned the heater on, turned the water change system off so that cold water wouldn't be coming in all day, and yeah, left it. But it was frustratingly slow watching the like for 3 hours the temperature didn't move. I think that
Wow.
I think that the coldness in the tanks was just sucking the any heat that I tried to put into the room out of it. Like it was just a big massive. We talk about being a heat soak, but it's also a cold soak as well. Like the room, heating the room's brilliant, but obviously it does take time to warm it up. Um, so it took 24 hours to go from for those tanks to go from, and also it was interesting. The end tanks that were 15 caught up to the 18-degree tank first, and they both rose together. So they didn't like raise, like the 15-degree tank didn't raise at the same rate as the 18-degree tank until they caught
Oh,
up.
yeah.
That
So
that
it's
would
like
make sense though.
as the
If like
room's
the air
warming up,
temperature- yeah.
as the air temperature's getting up, it's bringing those two tanks closer together, and then as they both the temperature gets to a certain point, the tanks have warmed up to a certain point, and I think the heat sort of from the tanks was going back into the room, and it was kind of working together to slowly raise it. But 24 hours later, the temperature hadn't fully recovered, but it had got to 24 degrees, so that was pretty good. And that was yesterday, and that was when I turned the heater off and the water change system back on, and now I'd say we're back to normal. But during summer, I have to leave the door open to cool the room down, because otherwise it gets too hot without any
Yeah, that
heating running.
makes sense.
Without any heating running.
So,
So
cause,
now it's
so did you lose any fish
nothing,
in the end? That's
nothing.
awesome.
I
That's
was very
good.
happy. I was,
Are you
I was,
on high alert for like disease and stuff like that
I'm
afterwards?
keeping an
And
eye
what,
out. Like
what,
I was supposed
yeah.
to, I was supposed to ship some fish. I was supposed to ship some trophies to Boise down to Braxton. So I put them on hold, and I was supposed to move that sunshine through to Cam for you today. yesterday, the other day. So, but I'm just like, I'll just hold it off for a couple of days. I don't expect any issues because I've had stuff like this happen before and never had any issues. If they didn't die instantly, they were fine. But and they look happy and healthy and eating. But it's just I'll just give it a couple of days just to see, make sure nothing crazy happens, But I don't expect to have any problems. If they didn't die instantly, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, it's fickle.
That's pretty got away with it.
They were all pretty happy and healthy and looking good to start with. So, I was glad that I don't keep discus or fancy plecos or anything because they would have all died, surely.
Most likely.
Most
likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Cam's obviously clearly bored of your discus and pleco chat. He's like,
it's understandable.
Sorry, man.
What's that?
You've muted yourself more.
You're talking.
Oh, shit.
Well done.
Well, I was saying we had to wake up at bloody 5:30 this morning because Cam wanted to record early, and then he didn't jump on till like 10 to 6. Waste of time.
Yeah, Cam did say he'd be on, ready to go at 5:30, and we could be when we wanted to be, and he didn't show up.
My exact words were, "I will be here at 5:30."
Yeah.
So I can go whenever you guys want to. And
here in the recording thing.
10 to 6. It was our normal time that I turned our stream on. And what time did you guys arrive? You weren't here either. So
there were messages
what
coming through. I
was around. There was no links to jump on. How am I supposed to jump onto it with magic?
We waited patiently till 5:40, and that's when the messages of abuse started coming through.
You did not. You weren't even out of
That's
bed.
When all the jokes started.
You weren't even out of bed.
But we had to wait for 10 minutes just out of politeness for you to actually follow
You've got to be
through,
reasonable, with your bullying.
Usually 10 minutes late anyway, so it's normal.
Exactly.
Excuse me. I've got credit for the one time that you were like 3 hours late.
Oh, I was 45 minutes late, but you're 10 minutes late every time. So,
you're exaggerating the truth. I'm going to exaggerate the truth. You were like 5 hours late. Gosh, we didn't even turn up for that whole day.
Time probably works differently in Nelson because, don't have clocks and stuff.
Yeah, got to rely on the old sundial way.
Man, aren't you guys hilarious?
Yeah.
Same old over and over again.
It's a shame you can't tell your Nelson joke on the pod. I just don't think that would work. But,
God, get some new material.
I did tell a Nelson joke to Cam the other day, but that's not PG. We might need to set up a Patreon or something, put it behind a paywall so we can tell these horrific jokes.
Yeah.
Horrific.
But yeah, the Fishroom door, I need to obviously get better at monitoring it. And
you should set up like some sort of alarm or something for it.
But I leave it open all day. I just don't know how to. And often in summer, I'll leave it open all night as well.
Just a reminder to close it or something at like nighttime or something.
Maybe I'll just set a reminder on my phone at 8 o'clock every night to check it. And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Soon we'll be into the time when it doesn't matter. But because we had 4 degrees overnight, and I can watch the temperature drop off too, and it went from like 26, and then it just like plummeted real fast, man. Like it just went woof. You could just see the heat like sucking out of the room.
So the water
when you say temperature, you
Sorry?
what?
So like you're saying is like water holds temperature fairly well, so it didn't hold that temperature well at all.
Your glass is a pretty poor insulator of temperature, and I guess the only thing keeping it warm was the room, and the room was freezing. Like I went in there, even when I went in there 6 hours later, the room felt cold. It felt really cold, and I stuck my hand in a tank, and it was like, ooh, cold to put my hand in there. I was like, ooh. Fish still swimming around and looked happy, but
when you say temperature, are you talking about the air temperature, or are you talking about the actual water temperature of a few of the tanks?
I track the temperature of 2 tanks. One in the middle, both in the middle rack height wise, but one's in the middle of the room lengthwise, and one's at the end of the room lengthwise as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the air temperature changed, like how fast that changed compared to, if the water went actually slower, but it's still fast.
the water would have still definitely gone slower. But I mean,
It'd be cool to have that information. I mean,
it would have been cool, yeah.
just
yeah.
for
But
interest's sake.
I was even
Just do it again.
Yeah.
Nah.
Why are you coming to the party without all the information? Come
Yeah,
on,
exactly. Just do it again. You're not committed
I
to
have.
science.
Not good
I'm
enough.
definitely not committed to science for that one. I think we'll do some empty tanks if we need to track that information. But I was still astounded. I was astounded by how long it took to come back up. Is what I was. That was what got me. But that's probably also a good. It's a good thing though if the if the temperature went down, if the temperature went up too fast, it could stress them more. So you want them to slowly come back to life. But the ones that were lying on the bottom, I wanted to come back to life instantly. But I just had to have a bit of patience, close the door, leave it alone, let them sort of wake up.
Do their thing.
Yeah.
Don't be pouring boiling water in there.
I was about to actually, but then I was just like, I was like, but I've got 57 tanks here. Which ones do I pour the water into? So yeah, I was just like, nah, let it come up slowly.
Well, yeah. I swear Ryan's always the one with these whack-ass stories. It's because he lives in Helensville. What else? What have you had happen, Cam? Anything exciting happening? Okay, cool.
Nothing.
Good chat.
That's not true.
That's cool for a podcast. That's a great podcast material you got.
I've set up another 10 or so tanks over the weekend out the back here.
Oh, so what are you putting in them?
I've got 3 tanks. I've got dwarf cichlids in it. 4 tanks. I've got corridors in them.
Which dwarf cichlids have you got in there?
Bolivian rams, golden eye nanocaras, and I also put a pair of T-bars in there. So all of them have got a pair in them.
No. Do you call T-bars dwarf cichlids? Do you?
Dwarf enough for me.
Yeah.
They're not big brutes like jags and whatnot.
Yeah, they're cool.
Would a blue acara be a dwarf cichlid?
Yeah, I don't put blue acaras in dwarf
Asking the
cichlids.
real questions.
I know that they kind of get about the same size, but I don't put blue acaras in that.
No, blue acaras, I've seen blue acaras at 15, 17 centimeters.
Yeah.
But a T-bar would get like what, 12 centimeters?
Not imported good ones, of course. Like actual quality ones. But I haven't seen them for years.
Yeah, T-bars get larger than dwarf cichlids, but not large in the cichlid range, if that makes sense. Or, I'm going with that?
Asking the real questions. Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't classify a T-bar as a dwarf cichlid, but I'd classify it as smaller cichlid.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It wouldn't. I don't know if it would be a dwarf cichlid for me, but it would be like a little. It would be on the smaller end of normal size cichlids.
But that's cool.
But yeah,
it's your story
semantics.
anyway. You're allowed your story. Okay, carry on with your story.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
That's all right.
This is just dig at me day, isn't it? Like there's just all day long we're just going to be dig, throwing those jabs, and you're going to throw a knockout blow at some point, aren't you? I can feel it. I can feel it coming.
Well, I don't know. There's plenty we can bully Ryan about, so I'm just a perfect guy. So I mean, there's not really much to bully me about, so that's fine.
Yeah. So you moved all them around, and then moved the corridors around, and so I've got 2 tanks that'll get some fish in once they're out of quarantine.
You sent a video of a whole bunch of cories in a tray or something. Looked like bloody a metric shit ton of the bloody things.
Yeah,
what were they?
stir-bys. A bunch of stir-by that I moved out over.
Oh, they're for breeding.
I knew I had a few. I didn't realize I had that many.
How many did you have?
So,
looked like 20 or 30 or something, did it?
I was about 15 or so, but I thought I only had about
a lot. Yeah, there's a lot in there.
So for these tanks, are you going to be using them for spawning tanks and breeding, or just like for holding for stock?
Spawning. So I'm theorizing that fish are going to spawn and reproduce better when they're in their own species-only tank, and giving them what they want as opposed to having lots of different fish around them, sort of scenario. And that would
make sense for like a lot of fish for sure. Like these type of fish, like obviously Crebensis or something doesn't matter, but for like cories and that, this may be a little step up in terms of difficulty. that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so maximizing egg production and that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to separate everything that I've got into their own species tanks to move forward with.
Generally, it's the best idea. The only thing I've found is very shy fish seem to go better with other fish in the tank. You know, because otherwise they don't seem to ever come out and eat or settle properly if you don't have something else in there to bring them out a little bit, and that just seemed to make them a little bit more successful in spawning. But then also the other fish eat the eggs and babies, so you've got to be careful. But yeah.
And I guess that's just a natural thing of like in the wild there. Got other keys and other alerts if there's predators around. If there's no other fish around, that's a concern for them. So
something's wrong.
If they're a little dwarf cichlid and they're chilling in the Amazon and they're looking around, going, "Oh, all our mates are out there swimming around. It must be all good. There's nothing big going to eat us." And then they go out there and there's nothing swimming around. They're like, "Hell no, I ain't coming out. No, stay
exactly.
home. Someone's going to eat me."
There's a predator about, so
especially when a big old Harry Potter looking Cam comes on with his glasses and goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
And my torch trying to find stuff.
Looking for your fancy plecos. They go, "Oh my god, that thing's gonna eat me. What is that?"
I mean, that would be traumatizing for a human, let alone a fish.
Yeah.
I will have you know that 2 of the 3 tanks that I've got fancy plecos on, I can see them all day, every day, because I've set the tank up like that. So
they bear
Did you just see like the back of their tail, just like a little sliver of tail?
No, proper full fish.
Fair enough.
I'll send you a video later.
I also got a present for Cam Auckland and maybe Cam Nelson as well, and it's right here in this box.
Oh no,
right
not another present.
See, there's a box of presents. It's not a live fish, but this is presents for them. So I just
Ryan's been sending me pictures of this, and I'm like, there's no way this is going to end well. This is, I'm very scared. I'm fearful.
There's actually a present in there for definitely for Cam Auckland, potentially for Cam Nelson.
See, even that is suspicious.
Yeah, I know, right?
So,
but it's 2 months till Christmas, so they're probably going to get their Christmas presents early.
Ooh, I like Christmas early. To be fair, I've already started playing Christmas carols in the shop and Christmas music.
Oh god!
I went to Bunnings the other day, and there was someone there buying a big inflatable Santa, and I was like, "Come on, you've got to wait a couple months for this bullshit."
Yeah, I saw the Santa stuff. So yeah, Christmas is coming! Woo! It's a good time.
All right, well,
it's time to watch Die Hard.
We should probably move this podcast along. So,
okay.
I haven't really had anything that exciting happen. What have I had?
Got some fish I got some. Me?
I got some cool fish off you. Some of them I kept for my own display tank, so that's quite cool.
What did you keep?
A couple of those hybrids, guys. I quite like them. Those like German red type things. And then
yeah.
What else did I get? There was one other thing.
We've been sourcing them from another guy, and they're pretty nice fish, and they're pretty good size, and they're reasonably priced. He got them off a breeder, but we just don't really know what they are. They seem to breed true.
They're cool. They're pretty cool.
I don't really my favorite thing, but Cam likes them, so
yeah,
right.
I quite like them. They got this like burnt, like rusty orange color. Like I kind of like it. But yeah, I don't know what Cam's doing. But aside from that, nothing else that exciting has really happened to me. I've just been basically just pottering around. That's like my favorite thing. It's like just pottering around the shop, like moving around plants, and like I've been moving heaps of fish from like in the sales tanks, from like swapping their tanks around, because like some that's been sitting there for ages, I like swapping tanks. It's good fun, man. Should own a fish shop, people. It's a ball. But so we'll just quickly do my non topic question, my little random question that we've had good feedback on. So hey, that's a start. We had one guy said, I had one guy come into the shop who said he found it funny. So shout out to you.
I've had 2 people support me on my Pretty Got Fingered being a good movie. So yeah.
That should go behind a paywall as well. But so today's question is, I've forgotten the question. Oh no, this is awkward. Wait, hold on 1 second. Oh yeah, no, I remember. Don't worry. It's because the
That's
cat was
awesome.
doing some random. The cat was doing some random thing over there, and I was like, "What the hell is she doing?" I got confused. But
You're like, oh, shiny thing, seagull.
yeah, exactly. So we all know that household chores suck. But what is your favorite household chore? Go, Ryan.
There's no such thing as a favorite household chore. Household chores suck donkey balls.
Or your least hated?
My least hated household chore is watching Kim do the household chores.
Oh yeah, it's good she's not awake. Otherwise, I'm sure there'd be some projectile flying at you from
Actually,
across the
it's
room.
probably not my least favorite because if she's doing them and I'm not, I'm in so much trouble and she's real angry. But she's like not even passively aggressive cleaning. She's aggressive cleaning and like just real angry at me. No, I probably would say is cooking a household chore. Like if I have to do anything for the house, then like cooking a meal is probably the best thing. But not deciding what is for the meal. But not deciding what is for the meal because I hate doing that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like I like doing that for me, but I don't like doing it in the scope of what will everyone else actually eat.
The pressure.
Because they're all fussy shits, and I don't want to go to the effort of cooking something and then have them come and go, I don't want to eat that. I was like, fuck that.
Then that's leftovers for you for lunch. Problem solved.
Yeah, it is. But then when they go and cook noodles or something, when you've spent ages cooking food, you're like, nah.
But
anyway,
right, what's yours, Cam?
Mine is also cooking, except I really enjoy the organising of what we're having for dinner, and then feeding my kids stuff they don't like, and going, oh, I forgot you didn't like that. I'm sorry, eat it.
Let's hope they don't listen to this podcast then. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll be getting stabbed in the middle of the night.
Actually, one of them listens to the shorts that we do, the things we cut up. So I just won't cut this one up and do it so she can hear. But yeah, cooking definitely.
Oh no, cut it up and test it.
Yeah, I love cooking and I love the planning of all the meals and all that kind of stuff that goes with the whole experience. So basically block everything off from the world, turn the Spotify on or something on those lines, and just annoy the house for an hour or so while I'm my own little world cooking, and then get really pissed off when they don't eat it because I've cooked stuff they don't like, and then it's just a circle that we continue with every day.
Fair enough. Sounds like
and you even have a barbecue channel on YouTube. Hey,
I do. That doesn't really get any.
Shout out to the underutilized and never used barbecue channel. There you go.
We'll chuck it in the episode notes for this if you guys want to check it out.
We really
you can find Cam's barbecue channel. I will. I'm in charge of uploading stuff. You shouldn't have linked it to me. We'll get you some subs, boy. The good kind.
It's not going to be used, so I wouldn't.
You're going to have to make some content though. So
I'm absolutely not going to. I'm absolutely not going to.
Well, for me, I quite enjoy the vacuuming, so I just find it fun. So yeah, that's my one.
I'm cleaning my room. Oh, you probably haven't seen that movie either, have you?
You probably don't have vacuum cleaners.
That's actually a good movie. That's a great
movie.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So let's talk about the actual fish that we're here to talk about now. So someone is going to have to remind me of the topic for today's episode, though, because I fully don't remember.
You picked
it.
You were the one that was supposed to lead it because we were both like, I don't know what to do in this one. But you would like
Wait,
talking about things that you've learned, like things that you've hacks that you've learned, or things that you've learned to make life easier.
We're talking about live food.
Live food. Okay, cool. That's all right. We're not doing that one anymore. That's good. Right.
Okay, yeah. That's a little sneak peek for next week's episode when we plan it out. Man, we're really putting the idiots in 3 idiots, aren't we?
We do know what we're doing. If people are listening, we do know what we're doing. This is just a game. It's just a ploy.
This is just for the comedy value.
It's a ruse. We're fooling all of you.
So yeah, today we are talking about live foods. So live foods is like any sort of, generally it's like bugs and like insects and like worms and all this type of like creepy crawly stuff that would be fed to your fish and generally is cultured, like you grow yourself. So the good thing with live foods, I reckon, is like there's options for like anything. Like even if it's like 1 day old fry of something that you've bred, or it's like a big adult giant gourami, like there's options for everything, and obviously everything in between. And there's also options like stuff that's like really easy to look after, like to grow, that you can basically like set and forget. And then there's stuff that's like if you want to do something kind of as a bit of a hobby in of itself or a bit more fun, you can have like some really hands-on, like fiddling around with them all the time cultures. This does obviously cross over into like the reptile space. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about reptiles, but like people keeping like bearded dragons and
Bearded
like
dragons.
skinks and stuff. And then even like
Gotcha,
birds,
mealworms
like
and stuff, eh?
yeah, and then even like birds, like people feed chickens mealworms and stuff. Like again, I don't want to give any advice in this area. I have no idea, but I've seen it on YouTube, so it must be true. But yeah, just this kind of general live food is good. So I'll throw the question out to you guys of why do we do live foods? What's the benefits? What is the purpose? Why is it a thing? Go. Answer the question.
Yes, sir.
Now.
Off the doofy.
Good boy.
So I feed live foods on a daily basis, looking at potentially doing it on a 2 times a day basis, and that's with brine shrimp. I do that because all the fish that we feed around here are generally pretty small. It's got a lot of build up of decent amino acids and things like that, and it helps them recover from being shipped in a little bit easier, get them conditioned, get them healthy, get them nice and plump and that kind of stuff. So live food in general is a better, in my mind, a better option than pre-prepared food, but it's all about balancing everything correctly as well. So in the wild, fish are picking away at live food all day long, whether it's little microorganisms or whether it is worms or insects, mosquito larvae, that sort of stuff. So it's just trying to replicate what they are eating naturally or more naturally in the wild than what we're feeding them pre-prepared wise for me.
So yeah, I guess you're saying like I guess the undertone of what you're saying is like it's better for them like health wise and like quality wise and like nutritional value in that than say for example like a flake or a pellet or something like that.
Yeah, realistically, yeah. Also gives that instinct of them having to hunt a little bit as well, which is enrichment to their mind. It's not just this random things falling from the sky that they just got. The little reaction to food as well.
It's like that foraging behavior or hunting behavior depending on the fish. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why we use brine shrimp as a daily type food.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to start because that's probably one of the most, that would be the most popular, I'd say. With
probably.
A fair amount of certainty, I'd say that would be the most popular one that people do. So, what is brine shrimp and how does it kind of work and how would you do it? And what is maybe the benefits of that compared to, for example, even frozen brine shrimp or something like that?
Brine shrimp, I believe, is a small little crustacean of some description.
It's like a little shrimp, I think.
Sea monkeys.
Yeah. The ones we feed are normally like a day old.
And why is it best to feed them at a day old?
So from my understanding, they're a lot smaller for a small amount of fish, but in the hatching process, brine shrimp themselves use a lot of energy as they're hatching, and within the first 24 or so hours, that's when they're the most nutritionally packed of goodness. When they get past that stage, they're not that nutritionally good until they get into like the adulthood stage of life.
They start absorbing their nutrients that they were born with. And if you want them to be that good again, you've got to gut load them by feeding them full of stuff. But they've got all their natural goodness still inside them before they've eaten it, consumed it to live.
Yeah. So the only time you get to that peak again is when they become adults, and again that's because they'll be eating what they need to survive, and that's when they get gut loaded of all their other stuff. So that's why it's best to feed them early on.
Yeah. So you're saying that you usually
also they just die, don't they?
They can do, yeah.
Well, yeah. So because with the brine shrimp, there's kind of like two. I don't know what the word is, but like schools of thought. So as we've touched on, you can feed like the baby brine shrimp, which is when you get the little eggs and then you hatch them out and then you feed them out. Um, so there's that option. Otherwise, you do see a lot of people who like culture brine shrimp and like say they got a little tank of, I don't know, say like 40 liters, say for example. You kind of culture them and grow them and breed them, and then you can just scoop some out and feed them. These are kind of two options. I'd say they've both got pros and cons of each, for sure. But I guess in for us, I think we're all on the same page that like doing the baby brine shrimp is probably better in terms of ease and hassle in that. But you can culture them. It's just a bit more difficult and a
Have
bit
you guys
more
successfully cultured them
space.
before? I tried once and failed, but I never had any luck with it.
Do you guys want to hear a funny story? So I've got in my shop, I've got this bucket, and I put heaps of salt in it to keep the nets in, just to double check and double cross off in case of cross contamination in that. And it's right next to my brine shrimp hatching station. And ages ago, like maybe it was a year ago or something now, I actually somehow like some brine shrimp got in there and they were actually like breeding in there. And I had a little culture going in my bucket of nets. And like there was like quite a few. And I assume they were just eating on all the random, like, because in that bucket there's always like dead leaves and like bits of crud and everything that makes its way in off the nets. And I assume they were just feeding on that. But like there were some pretty big ones, like all the way up to adult size, and they were like breeding in that. And then I don't know what happened. Then they all disappeared. I think they either got taken out on a net and then put in a tank and then eaten or died or something. But yeah, that's the only time I've done it, and it was a complete mistake that I didn't even try to do. But I've never actually intentionally tried to culture brine shrimp, but I do want to. It's definitely on the list of things I want to do. Just kind of as a fun project in of itself, not even necessarily as a food source. But yeah, Ryan's now talking with his mic muted.
Boomer,
So
boomer.
that's all good.
Boomer
moment.
Yeah. I'm not actually a boomer. I'm just old. But anyway, the idea of, even though they're not that expensive, of having like a continuous source of them would be really good.
Yeah, because you'd also get maybe if you've got some slightly larger fish, you'd get some slightly larger ones to feed the bigger ones, and then some smaller ones for the smaller fish, like the whole kind of scale. But yeah, baby brine shrimp or brine shrimp in general is a really fun little option for people for sure. And it does have some real benefits. I think that's why it's probably the most popular option. So yeah, what would you guys
I have a story about brine shrimp that
sure.
I can only really remember half of the story, but it's actually quite an interesting story. So apparently, and this actually, I have actually semi-verified it by buying some at one stage many years ago. But there's rumors, or there's speculation that someone, an aquarist, released a whole bunch of brine shrimp eggs into the wild down south somewhere. I don't know where, I think in a salt farm down south. And they were actually wild, and they were going out there and harvesting them and selling them for the aquarium trade. And these were really good ones because they were really small. So a lot of your really small live bearers and stuff could eat them from birth. And they were actually floating around maybe 15 years ago in the hobby. You could buy them, New Zealand bred or sourced brine shrimp. I don't know whatever happened to them. When I just did a quick Google, there is a little bit of biosecurity about them. I haven't really read them, but yeah, they were actually in the wild in New Zealand and being sold and bred. I believe the theory was they were introduced illegally into the wild and then harvested probably illegally as well. But yeah, they were around. So
Well,
that's my story.
that's weird. Yeah. Well, on the one hand, it's interesting to know they can survive outside, but on the other hand, if you're listening, don't do that. That's not good. But
But I think because when they do make salt, they have these big, massive drying lakes
yeah.
of like big, massive lakes of salt, basically of seawater that evaporates out, and they go and pick it all up. And I think that's where they were from memory.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's weird
yeah.
as.
It's
Must
quite
be
crazy.
tough little creatures.
There wasn't enough fish to eat them all as they were hatching, sort of thing.
Well, there would be no fish in them. Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah,
All right.
I'll do. There is a lot of. There was some stuff on the internet on it about it all that I can't seem to find right now, but it'll be around somewhere.
I vaguely
Else?
remember hearing something along those lines as well.
Yeah.
I don't. So
Because you probably
Well,
weren't even playing.
I would
it's
have
a bit of a
15 years ago. I would have been like 6 or 7,
Not even born, you reckon?
8
Not
maybe.
even
mm.
Yeah,
There will
maybe.
be people. There will be some old school people that have been around a while that will actually know the whole story. But
If they listen to the
Yeah.
podcast, feel free to let us know. We'd love to hear it.
yeah, I only know half the story.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Well,
That's my story about brine shrimp. I actually use the decapsulated brine shrimp in my fish room because I'm too lazy to hatch it.
So,
Um,
well, now that you've said that, so what is that? What does that mean?
it's where they. So the theory is that the brine shrimp are the most nutritious, very like we were talking about before, closest to the egg stage. So, and when they're in the egg, the fish can't eat it because it's got this hard shell around the outside, so it can't digest it. It's just eating an egg, a whole egg that it can't process anything out of. So decapsulating is where they use a process. I don't know what they use, chemicals and stuff, I guess, to burn or melt the shell off the brine shrimp eggs, and then wash them and get them all safe for consumption again. And then basically you just buy the unhatched eggs without the shell on them and you just feed them out. And it's basically just pure goodness. The disadvantage of that is you don't get the movement that the live brine shrimp give you. And they do float and stuff like that. So it's harder for some fish to get them because they're floating around the top of the tank. And you don't get that stimulation, especially for real young fry. They're not moving, so they don't tend to go and eat them or chase them or, be stimulated to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
But for my African cichlids, they eat pretty much everything that floats in front of their face. They're really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose technically it's not a live food, but I guess it fits in the same mold. But yeah, so what other live foods do you guys see around that? Maybe Cam, what do you see? What do your customers seem to like?
Seem to sell a decent amount of microworms and
So don't do microworms because it's the only thing I can talk about.
Okay.
Because I do.
So I sell a few vinegar eels, white worms, microworms, and grundle worms are the other ones that I am culturing.
So
black worms is another one that's around.
Do you want to do a little bit of a, I guess, quick summary on each of them and what they are and what kind of size fish they'd be good for and all that kind of thing?
I have a question though. Did anyone have blackworms? I used to do blackworms and they were awesome.
I failed with my blackworms.
I also failed with my blackworms, but they are around. I know a few people who got them, but I couldn't seem
They
to
were
get
real
them
good.
to
I
work.
used to put them in a tank full of gravel with a sponge filter and then feed them on cat biscuits, and they went hard.
Yeah. I failed with mine. I think it got about the same time I lost all my Daphne. It got ridiculously hot over summer, and I just couldn't control the temperatures, and that cooked them, and that was them, unfortunately. So I'll try again at some point.
Yeah. But well, I guess seeing as we're talking about blackworms, what's blackworms, Cam?
They're little aquatic worms. So they're fully aquatic, which is great, so they don't die underwater. from my understanding, they really like being in dirty, filthy type water environments. That's where they get their nutrients from. Like Ryan said, they live in gravels and stuff like that, so they reproduce by separating themselves, which is kind of cool. If you got yourself a decent culture going, you can throw them into your aquariums, and then obviously because they're aquatic, they won't die. And if you do it well enough and you don't have enough fish, they will actually populate that aquarium. So you've got a proper supply chain of live food building in the aquarium as well. So that's cool. If you
Like a
yourself,
fully natural ecosystem thing going on.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool if you can get to that stage. So your fish can, naturally graze whenever they're meant to be grazing and whenever they want to graze, which I think is kind of cool. Probably big enough to feed, I would suspect African cichlids be big enough for that sort of size. Definitely
When
the
I did the
juvenile one.
blackworms, I used them for my altos and stuff. They loved them.
Yeah.
And the
Maybe
peacocks and haps, they were smashing it.
Yeah. Maybe some of your bigger ones, you need bigger quantities like your frontoses and your livingstone and stuff like that. But your sort of mid-sized, normal-sized African cichlids should be big enough for them as well, which is kind of cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, they're maybe one of the. They're supposed to be quite easy to culture. Obviously, we've both not had great success with it, but both of them are supposed to be quite easy. So, yeah, that might be another good option. They're maybe not quite as
Brian,
easy to find around New Zealand.
So I have a question about brine shrimp that people might want to know is, this is the reason I don't do it, is I find it a bit of a hassle. Like, what is your guys' sort of process for culturing and feeding them out? Like, is there an easy way to do it for people? What do they do?
Well,
because obviously we talked about brine shrimp, but we haven't talked about how do they actually make them work.
That's a good point. You probably should have done that.
Do you just get a cup of water and chuck them in there, and then they're ready in the morning? You just tip it in, or what do you do?
So you just want like I use like a upside down bottle, and just like have bubbles going in it, but not like super hard. Just basically that it needs to be enough to kind of suspend them in the water column. So I just have like these little bubbles going, and you just add a bit of salt, add some eggs, and leave it for like, it'll depend on the temperature of the area that you're doing it, but for the most part, somewhere between like 24 and 48 hours will be enough to hatch them all. And then what I do is then like turn off the bubbles and then have a light at the bottom of the bottle, like, just like a desk lamp, and leave that for maybe, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, and all the hatched brine shrimp swim to the bottom. And then I have this little valve at the bottom that I use, and then I open that up into like a little catching cup, and it goes into the cup, and then I feed it out. And then once I've got all the brine shrimp, just all that water is like all dirty water, and like all the eggshells, like the hatched eggshells and stuff. And then I just like rinse that all out, get rid of all that, and then start again. So yeah, that's kind of my thing. It's not it's one of those ones that sounds a lot more scary and a lot more difficult than it actually is. After your first couple times, might be a little bit difficult, but after that, it's super, super easy to do.
So you just make up some salt water, chuck some salt in some water, chuck some eggs in, and then you're away to go.
Yeah, with some little bubbles going.
So is the aeration important, is it?
Well, I don't think the aeration in of itself, but because you want to keep them suspended in the water column, you don't want them like floating on the top. They need to kind of be like stuck in the water column, like floating around. And I think bubbles is the easiest way to achieve that, from my understanding. I guess I don't see why you couldn't use like a power head or something, but it seems like a massive pain. But yeah, I find the bubbles the easiest method.
Probably because they get drawn into the impeller and get smashed.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I just feed it out.
And so, but you can buy real fancy like hatcheries and shit that work pretty well too, can't you? Or are they not on the
there's
market
like
anymore?
all sorts.
Is this one's not on the market anymore? Are they? Because they not in New Zealand anymore. Is that right? Or
Suppliers sold out.
yeah.
Yeah, but no, you can get other brands. Like I think pretty much every brand would have some form of hatchery. Maybe they're not New Zealand, but there's all sorts of different ones. Like there's this one, like all sorts. But they are easy to DIY as well if you wanted.
But do they need to be kept warm?
The warmer they are, the faster they'll hatch.
Yeah, they need to hatch around 25, 26 degrees sort of scenario.
So someone with one tank has to float it in their tank or something, do they? Put it on top of their tank or something to have it warm.
Yeah. People do that or use the old light globes with a bit of warmth in them to do that as well.
I've found they do hatch even without. It's just it takes a lot longer to actually get it done, but like within reason. Obviously, if it's like 1 degree, it's not going to do anything, but within reason, they will still hatch. It'll just take longer. So yeah, but no, it's not too difficult or anything.
Sometimes you also need to add a little bit of baking soda to buffer your pH and everything a little bit as well.
Yeah, I've heard of people adding baking soda. I was going to ask that if it happened.
Yeah, I haven't found that necessary, but if it works for you, that's the main thing, I suppose.
Yeah, it all depends on your water conditions and stuff. Like I've spoken to several people that are having really average hatch rates. Chuck some baking soda in, the hatch rate just improved tenfold. So,
I've also heard of people using water out the aquarium that's got no like to get rid of the chlorine and everything, but I've never bothered with that and doesn't seem to cause any trouble.
Do you just use normal table salt, or do you have to use like aquarium, like marine salt?
I'm pretty sure you can just use whatever.
Yeah, I use marine salt, and I've found that my hatch is better. But I'm standard rock salt does the same. Will hatch as well.
Yeah, and I think it is a really fun food to feed for sure. Like any sort of so when it comes out, I kind of explain to people. I guess it's a little bit bigger than sand. It kind of just looks like sand when you've got it in your little cup. But yeah, any sort of like tetras, rams, even things like your cories, barbs, gouramis, shell dwellers, Drilodochroma species, like all this kind of thing, they'll all go to town on it. They kind of just seem to go crazy for it. Yeah, anything with a little enough mouth. Even like I found stuff like slightly bigger stuff like black skirt tetras and that
they still pick at
small
them.
Enough
you
for
see
them.
If you put it in the tank, and I've been there when you fed it out, you see the fish like it looks like they're stopping all the time and going dum 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 dum. But if you stand back, you can't actually see the brine shrimp, but they're just going mad at something, picking at the water.
Yeah.
And they're just eating all these tiny shrimp.
The only things that I've got that are too big for it is my frontoses and one of the birches that I've got. Like everything else, go for it fine. Like even the African cichlids I've got in the shop, the green severums, all that kind of stuff, they'll still eat it. No issues whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether or not it's enough to sustain them and fill them when they get big is a different story, but I still pour it in there.
Yeah, exactly. They'll still a bit of fun at least. It's good fun. It's one of those ones that's really fun to watch. Watch them do it. So that's a good thing. I guess it is the most popular one for good reason.
Have you fed your plecos brine shrimp yet?
Yeah, I have. I chuck it in the tank. I don't know. It's hard to know if they actually eat it or anything, but I do chuck it in the tank and nothing bad's happened. So I would assume they're eating it.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like it settles on the ground. Even like corridoras, bristlenoses, all this kind of stuff will still eat it as well. But yeah, no, it's a good fun little thing. What would you guys recommend as feeding options for if I wanted to do live food for like bigger fish? Like thinking like, bigger like frontoses, like bigger African cichlids.
Yourself a worm farm.
Mealworms.
Yeah, like earthworms.
Earthworms, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're all very easy to culture as well. But obviously, they're if for the people out there who are keeping, who are not keeping like little tetras and stuff, that's a good option. I actually have a earthworm farm in the shop. There's just one of those plastic storage containers, and I just put a bit of compost in to start it. Got some starter worms, and then I just throw like banana peels and like stuff from my lunch, all this kind of random stuff, and they just go crazy. Like they breed so fast, so that's a nice easy one, and then you just chuck it in. People do quite often, I find, worry about like the dirt and that, like because obviously a worm is like eating the dirt. I think I don't know how they work, but like when you pull them out, there's like all the dirt through the middle. So I know some people, like if you put them on a paper towel for like an hour, they'll spit it all out. But I just rinse them off in a cup and then throw them in, and they'll be fine. Nothing bad has ever happened to me, so
I think the
that's
fish
as
will
good
just
a
process the dirt, because in the wild they eat all sorts and just spit
all
it
sorts
out.
of random
Just
crud and
whatever,
stuff.
process it, goes through the body and whatever, like
So
not a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah. So that's what I feed that to like axolotls, the Malawi cichlids, Oscars, the arowanas, anything really, anything that even some slightly smaller stuff, like things like your convicts and that. I seem to eat at least the smaller ones. But yeah, no. The only tip I can give is if you start getting like real big ones, don't harvest them. Like leave the real big ones as the like breeders, and then just harvest like the medium-sized ones. And I find you'll get a much more consistent rate of big ones going on, or like a consistent rate of like medium-sized ones being available, because the bigger ones are able to breed. There's a little tip for you. So yeah, fun times. All right, so
Cool, sweet.
someone else going to talk?
Microworms. I do microworms in my fish room because they're easy.
How do you do
Agreed.
microworms?
There's a million different ways to do microworms, but I just use bread and yeast. So I get some bread and I sort of wet it and mash it down until it's like absorbed all the water, but not like
Like a
water
paste.
running everywhere, like a porridge type thing. Yep, pasty porridgey thing. Then just put a little sprinkle of yeast on it, and then just chuck some microworms in there, and then they'll just be cranking. And I use it like ice cream container and stuff, and maybe in 3 days they'll all be crawling up the sides, and I just wipe my fingers around the sides and wash in the tank, and it's all done.
So you just use like a piece of bread or like a slurry?
It depends on how big the container is, but 2 or 3 pieces of bread. And then
Yeah.
maybe in a week, the culture will go a bit manky, so you can chuck another bit of dry bread in there and it'll start cranking again, But the key is you just got to keep making cultures, and just throw them out or wash them out regularly, because otherwise they go stinky. Like Cam and I went in the fish room once, and I had an old one there, and it just smelled like like some sort of biohazard. And we were all dry retching and gagging when I opened it up and stuff. It was pretty bad. So you've got to actually
That was like
you got to cycle them out.
that was actually criminal. That one. That was like because I came out with my brother one time, and we were all like, he still mentions it. It was like that's a health biosecurity hazard. That one. But yeah, they do get a bit stinky, but if you don't keep them like next to your bed, but if you keep them in like a reasonable place with in a fish room or like in a shed or something, they'll be fine. And I know there is ways of, you might be able to speak more to this, Cam, but there is ways of doing it where it's not as smelly. Like I've seen people talking about ways of doing it, but I'm not 100% sure. Because I think it's the yeast that causes the smells.
People use porridge, and they use instant potato and stuff.
Yeah,
and they're a
I
little
use
bit less
oats.
stinky. Oh yeah, porridge works, and instant potato works and stuff. I haven't had too much success with those cultures, and I just use the bread because it cranks. Like in 2 or 3 days, it's going hard, and you can just use it and then set up another one, set up another one, set up another one, and
Yeah.
yeah. I don't use it as a staple diet because I just don't think it's like 100. I just don't know about the nutritional value of it really, or if it's 100% good to use every day. Like I have had some losses when I was using it too much, and so have a couple of friends. So I use it, every couple of days just to, and I don't use it on my vegetarian African cichlids just because I don't really know what it's going to do to them. I just use it on the carnivores.
It's quite good for like things like shell dwellers and stuff as well. Like
they love it. Yeah,
the kind of fish that like pecks at stuff, like dwarf cichlid, like your rams and pistos, for example, and like your shell dwellers, like things that's like going around like pecking at things. I find they just absolutely like it's like Christmas for them. Like Mariah Carey's blasting in the background, Bruce Willis is swinging from the top of the tank, all this kind of thing. They just
Macaulay
Culkin
is just beating up bad guys, and it's all good.
Yeah, man. It's like they're just having the absolute time of their life. So yeah, that's the kind of fish. But yeah, I'd say it's a little bit bigger than the brine shrimp, but like not mass wise. Like it's like obviously longer, but it's real skinny. So do with that information what you will. But all the same fish that eats either or, like if a fish eats brine shrimp, it'll eat microworms and vice versa. I think. Yeah, that's sorry. I got a little bit confused, but yeah, that's what they would eat. And we won't go too in depth on it because it's pretty similar. But vinegar eels as well is very similar. They're basically microworms, except you just keep them in like people do a bottle, like an old beer bottle or something, and then put a little piece of apple in there in some vinegar
They use
eels
apple cider vinegar and some water and some chunks of apple, and you chuck them in, and they sit there and crank away. I've got some, but I've never fed them to anything. I don't even really know where I've got them, but I've got them.
Taking up space. But that's the kind of good thing is like they sit on your top shelf.
Forever. They live forever. I haven't fed them in a year, and they're still there and cranking away. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I have seen you can do like the dry cultures, like you can culture them in a very similar way to microworms. I don't know enough to give any advice about that, but I have seen you can do that. So like they're pretty much the same thing is what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, then I don't know what other. I'm gonna throw one out there that I'm wanting to elicit a response, but guppies / platies / swordtails / convex / crebensis. Discuss.
It's not for me.
No.
So okay. If you're confused, I'm talking about feeder fish, like when you would, I guess, culture in quotation marks something like guppies and like have heaps of guppies cranking and then feed them out to other fish, like people. It's quite popular for things like Oscars and arowanas and that. I don't agree with that because I think so. Okay, I'll give my opinions on this matter. I think it's fine if you do it right, but doing it right isn't easy in the sense of like it's not always easy. So, like for example, it's quite popular for Oscars, but Oscars eat insects and like their niche in the wild is eating snails. Like, don't feed them snails, but like in the wild they eat snails. They're not designed to eat a fish. So you want to make sure that the fish you're feeding are actual predators. So like things like you mentioned it before, Cam, like a living stony might be the kind of thing that you'd want to feed a fish to because it's a predator. But I also think if you're doing it, it needs to be like swallowed in one go. Like you kind of see it sometimes online, and it's like horrific. Is like they put like these big ass goldfish, and then they're like getting chunks ripped off them and like shredded. That's horrific. That's no good. But like if it's swallowed all in one go, it's not for me. But if you have to do it, that's how you should do it. Is kind of the thing. And then you also want to make sure your guppies or whatever is getting fed like really good food. Like gut loaded essentially is a term that we will borrow from the reptile crew. you want to feed them like really good food so that good nutrients is getting into your fish. But yeah, it's not for me, but people do it. So you just want to make sure that, I guess the biggest problem I have is, for the most part, it's done for fish that aren't actually predators, that are like insectivores or, foragers or something. Like, that's obviously not a good idea.
Most fish, we can get them to eat commercially prepared food, and it's pretty good for them, and we can use earthworms and stuff
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that. But I mean,
even if they're not going to eat commercially prepared food, like, there's still other options. Like, insects and that is a bit different. They're not as mentally there. If I don't know I feel like I'm going to get cancelled, but you know what I mean. Like, they don't have pain receptors and stuff like that, so it's not as bad.
I guess
feed them.
there's definitely a place for it in the hobby. I'm not really for it. I don't think it's really needed in New Zealand, but there's definitely a place for it, and people do it. So
some people do it like it's the same as anything. Like, it's not for me, but some people do it well, and so that's them. And then there's some people who do it horrifically, which is like, don't do that. Basically,
I guess it's
a
no
contentious one.
different. It's no different really to putting angelfish in with your guppies to stop them from breeding, and then eating them naturally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or if you leave it, if you stick in a tank and you leave a holding female, she spits out and the fish will eat them. You know what I mean? That's just what it is sometimes. But intentionally doing it, I don't really.
The intention is the icky part.
I don't really see any purpose in it to me, but
And I mean, so for me,
the purpose is for people's enjoyments, not for the fish's actual requirements. That's why people do it 9 times out of 10. The only times it should, in my mind, be used is if your fish will only eat live food or live fish or what have you, which there is some fish that do, not very many in New Zealand. But other than that,
exactly.
There's a million different alternatives, and the people that do it are mainly doing it for their own entertainment, not for the enrichment of the fish. And that's why I'm on the don't do it fence as well. I'm not for it fence.
Exactly. Like, there's definitely, like, there is existing some fish that will only eat feeder fish, but as far as I know, we don't get any of those in New Zealand. So, if you're listening from overseas, obviously we can't speak to that, but at least as far as New Zealand goes, that's pretty much
like fire eels might be an option, that they may not take anything that's not alive, but even then, like,
they can take worms and stuff like that.
Stuff like that is a better option as opposed to small fish. But like, there'll be the odd fish that just won't take anything that's not alive.
But because there is one other argument I want to kind of refute, and that is the argument of, like, it's all natural and, like, this is what they do in the wild and stuff. And I guess my sort of you what? Sorry.
But so often it's not what they do in the wild.
Yeah, well, that's number one. And then the other thing is they're in a glass box in your house. So it's not, we can't be too hung up on the whole natural thing, because what we're doing is inherently unnatural. Like, it's not, if we were so worried about what they like, keeping it all natural, they wouldn't be in your house, they'd be somewhere else in Asia or Africa or South America or something.
And Oscar doesn't swim around and then get stuck in a 4-foot pond with a bunch of guppies to eat them, in the wild.
Exactly. Or if it does, it's very rare.
I can't verify that Oscars and guppies don't live together in the wild, because Oscars are American, aren't they? And guppies where are guppies from? Do we know
Mexico?
Where guppies are from? Are they?
Mexico. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So similar areas. I mean,
maybe
stranger things have happened
all the way from Mexico. Maybe there's an illegal immigrant guppy in America.
Maybe it got taken by a bird and then flown all the way down and dropped. But for the most part, it's not going to happen. But yeah, if you do need to do it, make sure that your fish actually is supposed to be eating other fish, and then make sure that it's as ethical as possible. Like, it's gone in one gulp and everything, and not, getting shredded while it's still alive. Because that's no bueno.
Doesn't
As
doesn't
the
sound that,
kids say.
it doesn't sound like a fun time for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a serial killer, I suppose. But yeah, so
What's
that's
the next one? What's the next one? White worms and grindle worms. Let's talk about them.
so. What's a grindle worm? I have never heard. Oh,
A
I've
grindle
vaguely
worm
heard
is
of this term, but I don't
grindle
know
worm
what
is
it
a
is.
small white worm.
Oh,
Essentially, yeah.
well, that's boring.
They like it slightly warmer, but yeah, they're basically the same thing, just smaller. So between a
So what's a white
micro
worm?
worm and a white worm, it's a worm that's white. Done.
Boom. Too easy, eh?
Finish.
Bad
Finish.
All right. So see you guys later.
I haven't done white worms for a long time because my fish room would be too warm for them. They would just cook in there, I imagine, and I can't be bothered setting one up somewhere else. But basically, you just get some potting mix. There's lots of arguments about what you should use as a media and stuff, and there's lots of stuff on the internet and that. And you chuck a seed culture of white worms, white worms in. They're like probably maximum 2 centimeters long, 20 millimeters. Did you say that? Roughly that?
No, they get a bit bigger than that.
Well,
I thought
yeah.
they'd be closer to like 4 centimeters.
We're not
Oh,
talking
really?
giant, but yeah, they do get bigger than that.
Okay, so
And they're very
you-
skinny, obviously.
they're obviously a long worm that's a smaller worm than an earthworm, and you basically just stick some sort of food in there. I used to use wet bread and just put that on the top, and then put a bit of glass on the top of it, and they would go up to eat the bread and then get up on the glass and pull the glass off, use that to feed the fish. But yeah, there's lots of different ways. Some people use luncheon, some people use cat food, all
Cat
sorts of things.
viscous. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends what you want to use, but they do need to be kept cooler, so under the house or areas, and some people keep them in the fridge, but I'm not allowed to do that. My fridge is
You
already
need a
filled with fish
dedicated fridge,
supplements.
probably.
Yeah. You don't really want but yeah, it's the biggest issue with them. They probably won't like summer.
No, they don't
So-
like summer.
They're also no good for like in a fish room or anything like that, eh? Generally, if
Like,
you've got a
if
heated
your fish room wasn't heated, it'd probably, like your shop would probably be okay under the shelves. They'd just struggle a bit over summer, because your
So-
shop's warm but not heated.
Do you guys want to know a funny story?
Always.
I have tried to do white worms 4 times, and 4 times it has been a massive fail. So I hate them. Everyone says they're like the easiest thing to culture, like the kind of like set and forget culture of like worm type things, but nah, never had success. So that sucks.
Why not?
I
Why
think
have you been-
I think there are a couple of tricks and tips to them, like to get them really cranking. Temperature's one
But
of
I've
them.
never
there's
even
the
had
right
them like
food.
just keep surviving. They just drop off and drop off and drop off, and then they're gone.
And you do need to restart the culture every so often because the media gets all compacted and runs out of goodness and stuff, and so yeah.
You have fed
Yeah.
them out.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried all sorts.
Okay.
Oh my god, wait. We've just had our first message on the 3 Let's Talk Aquariums podcast Facebook channel thing.
Oh God, is it spam? Is it a bot?
Someone said hello, so I don't know.
Just say
But yeah,
hello.
that's
we are
pretty
we are
exciting.
recording right now. Do you have any requests?
Oh no, I think it's spam. Don't
It's a
worry.
bot. Yeah, it's a bot.
Yeah. That's all good. Disappointing.
Oh, there was excitement for the day, but anyway, it's gone now. And now let's talk
Yep.
about grindle worms and white worms. So grindle worms are smaller than white worms, basically. Like half the
Is it
size,
like
I
the
guess.
same culture process and everything, or?
Yeah, but I think from memory they can handle it a little bit warmer.
I'm culturing my white worms and grindle worms totally different from each other. I've got
Oh,
my
yeah.
white worms in soil and feeding them. I'm feeding them the same thing. So I've got my white worms are in soil, used down the traditional way, but the grindle worms are in a plastic container with pot scrubby type material, and it's sort of built up a little bit of a terrace on it, and then they get in between that and feeding them on old fish food.
Oh, yeah.
So just put some water in there. So this is a small little bit of water at the bottom. They're quite messy. There's always seems, like worm juice or worm farm casings or whatever it is, worm waste. There's always a really interesting brown layer of muck at the bottom of it that needs to be cleaned out every week.
That's supposed to be fantastic plant fertilizer. Like if you have, vegetable garden or something like that.
I bet it is.
Yeah,
so I'm culturing mine slightly differently. Than the white worms. Yeah,
I might have to get you to send me up some. It seems slightly easier. So
yeah. I've only had the culture for a few months. I've only managed to split it into 2, so I want to split it into probably 4 before, so I can get them really cranking before I start moving things on. But they seem to be going okay. They're definitely multiplying. Every Monday I deal with all my live foods and clean them and refeed them, all that kind of stuff. And having the consistency of doing it every week seems to have improved the production of everything. So that's a bonus as well.
So a lot of them is just like a once a week kind of maintenance of the live foods, is it?
So similar to like as your fish get bigger, you got to feed more. I think it's very much the same as your cultures get bigger, you've got to feed more. At the moment, once a week seems to be okay, although when we've been opening up the grinder worms, all the food's been gone by Monday, so it might be I need to look at it Monday and Friday, for example. But at the moment, once a week seems to be going okay for most things, just to check out and refeed and all that kind of stuff. So,
oh, nice. Yeah, well, that sounds cool. So I guess that kind of covers off all the foods we wanted to talk about. But I think
we got Daphnia.
Daphnia.
Okay, well, talk about Daphnia.
Have a big sort of pond or vessel or something outside and get a cedar culture. And I mean, I guess you can put something outside and let it get manky and just have like mozzie larvae and all sorts of other stuff happens in there. Cyclops and stuff happens in there, and that they just happen. I used to chuck lawnmower clippings in mine, and then all sorts of stuff would happen. Obviously, you got to be careful because if you're culturing mosquito larvae, you're going to have mosquitoes. So you don't want to be you might not be the most popular person in the neighborhood, but your fish will like it.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah. But definitely is the similar thing. You just get a cedar culture from someone from somewhere. Fish shops can usually order it from biosupplies, I think, or just other people.
It's always on Trade Me and stuff like that. Like there's plenty around.
I don't think biosupplies does it anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. But you just want to something outside. The bigger, the better, because they don't like the heat as much as well. So you want a bit of volume if they're outside to sort of stop them from cooking. And chuck them in and then just feed them something. Like I say, I used to chuck a little bit of lawnmower clippings in there every so often, some organic matter to rock down and then for them to nibble on. Some people use fish food, some people use yeast and spirulina and all sorts of stuff.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that's another one actually that's very good for shell dwellers. So hey, always find a way to bring it back to my favorite fish.
Yeah.
But that's a good option.
I bought a bag of Azola from my supplier and forgot to do anything with it, so I just chucked it into a container. And about 2 weeks later, there was a whole bunch of Daphnia. So I've got a Daphnia culture now, which is stoked. Didn't have to do anything with it, but now I've got to do something with it because again, last summer they got too hot and they just cooked on. So
oh, nice. That's one I want to try as well. I've always wanted to try it, and I've never quite got around to it.
They don't like the heat, and they also don't like they slow down a lot over winter as well if they're not heated. So they live, but they don't really thrive. So
you know what I'm going to do? So I have this big rubbish bin, right? That I bought some fish off once, and the guy, I can't remember who, it might have been even Ryan, gave me this rubbish bin to transport them in. And it's just been sitting around taking up space, but maybe I'll see if I can do a Daphnia culture in it. That'll be fun.
Yeah, do it.
We might watch the space. Might have to see. But yeah, no, that's a good option. And then, so yeah, was there any other live foods you wanted to talk about, you guys?
Pretty much
did mosquito larvae and summer outside. Yeah.
Sick. All right. Well, what I wanted to talk about was so I think the coolest thing with live food is you get like live food hobbyists. Like I know we've talked about it before, Cam, me and you, but like you get people who's like they are live food people, if that makes sense. Like there's kind of collecting all sorts of different ones and like growing them all and like feeding all your fish. Like, oh, one day we'll do daphnia, then we'll do blackworms, then we'll do brine shrimp or whatever. And I think that's really cool. And there is a lot of crossover to like specific segments of the hobby. Like nano fish people tend to get quite into it. Like epistogramma people and like the dwarf tangiacan people. They all seem to cross over beautifully, and I think it's always really cool to see because it's one that people get really into, and it's almost like a bit of a separate thing in of itself, like how to keep this thing going, and like I just found out this new technique of like how to do the vinegar eels in a dry culture and all this kind of thing, and I think that's really cool. So it's a segment of the hobby where you can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want, like as we've spoken about before, Tom, who listens to the podcast, is like all the way down on corridoras, and like Ryan's all the way down on Africans. But like, you can learn as much as you want about live foods. And I'm sure there's like, I guarantee there'll be like hundreds of cultures, like live food cultures that we haven't even touched on yet. Like, you could do blowflies if you wanted to. You could do like cockroaches. You could do locusts. We didn't even talk about mealworms. Like
there's fruit flies, fruit fly larvae. I used to do fruit fly larvae. They were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, like you'll never
Little
run out of
maggots.
things to do, and I think that's horrific, but it is
Yeah, I've
doable.
done
But
maggots before.
What's that?
is that just
I've done
like
maggots before.
is that just in your kitchen, or are we talking about actual fish things?
You just don't clean your kitchen.
Actual fish things.
Yeah.
Actual fish things.
But no, you
Oh,
do it in
yeah.
a container and stuff, and you buy
Yeah.
a seed of wingless fruit flies, and you put rotten apples and shit in there, and away they go.
Yeah, like there's all sorts you can do, and it seems to be like a really rewarding thing, because obviously like your fish will enjoy it, like getting their food, and then you'll enjoy it, like learning about all these different things. Like you can play with all sorts, and I think it's a really great thing. You can't even do like there's green water is a culture that people do. Like you can culture green water and like
Infusoria,
feed it out to like
yeah.
like there's so many different things, and it's just so awesome seeing like how into it people get. So yeah, that's kind of just the only other thing I wanted to
People
I
like
suppose
to
touch on.
we talk about the niches and stuff and how people get into shit, but it's however you enjoy your. Some people really like the ecology and the challenge and the sort of how the evolution of it all and how to do that sort of thing,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that is pretty awesome. So yeah, all good. Well, did you guys have anything else you wanted to touch on before we head?
No,
I just
I'm
want to say O'Doyle rules and up the wires.
And how did that work out for you?
As always, next year.
Yeah.
How are your Blue Jays going?
Awkward.
How are your Blue Jays going?
I don't want to talk about it.
All right. Well,
got eliminated yesterday, so
I
that
think
was
that
fun.
also people
Yep.
need to jump onto YouTube and have a look at this logo that Cam has built. It's sitting in the top right of our recording. I think it's atrocious because it has a discus on it, and it has this really tiny writing going in a circle and kind of going upside down. That's really hard to read underneath it. I know what it says, but not many people will. So it's got a Trophus on it though, so it's going upwards. But I think it's
Ryan, just
terrible.
relax and breathe. We've already agreed that we're going to change it, but no one's come with any options to change it with.
I'm 100% not going to. I'm 100% not going to make another one, but I don't like this one. I'm going to be that guy. And it's got a discus on it, and none of us like discus, so it needs to just be discused out the window, just and then probably thrown in the air and shot like with a shotgun.
I've told you we're happy to change it. No one's come with any options for me to change it with yet.
I told you what to change it to.
If you don't like it, come with options. Just
I
like
have,
you
I've
should
told
vote
them to
in the
Tell you
general
what to do.
election. If you don't like it, you need to vote. If you don't like it, come with some options.
But anyway,
Well,
okay,
I like it, so
that
that's
subject's
fine.
been closed.
I
It's shit,
also like
and
it.
it's going to
I
change.
also like it. It's just the old baldy guy that's like,
Anyway,
He's just grumpy about everything because he lives in Helensville.
I'll just put my glasses on so I can read it. So anyway,
Comedy guy.
thanks for listening. Thanks for listening if you are listening, and need to
Before
see
you
some
go
more.
too much
What's
further
that?
with your closey. Before you go too much further with your closey. We're also cutting lots of segments into various shorts and stuff like that. If you want to see
For YouTube and that.
Yeah, we're doing little bits and shorts on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of them. And all the logos are different because we couldn't agree on one. But jump on.
And all the links will be below if you want to see them.
Yeah, jump on all the socials.
There'll be some cool Guami ones and all sorts of stuff.
Guami.
Guamis. So yeah, that'll be entertaining to say the least. Surely there'll be one
All
where
right.
Cam loses his shit about something as well, which will be fun as well.
Never happened. Don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, thanks for listening. If you are listening, go and give us those sweet reviews on Spotify. And we need to work on this merch because it's not happening. So,
Hey, at least we now have a logo for the merch.
well, it ain't going on anything. That thing's getting strong.
I will.
Right.
So, you guys, if any of the listeners want to get that tattooed on them, I'm sure we can crowdfund that. I'm sure we can crowdfund a 3 Idiots Talk Aquariums logo tattoo. So if you're interested, let me know and we'll get it organized for you.
One for the super fan out there. If we
Exactly. Tom, I'm looking at you. All right.
Yeah,
Peace. Love you all. Bye-bye.
I think Braxton would probably do that. It's got a Trophies on it. He likes Trophies now, so there you go. Shout out.
Boom. All right. See you later.
See you guys. Bye.
Goodbye.